Hello everybody and welcome to Cause and Effect, a show about vetes. Today we're going to talk about card flow, how to manage your card flow in-game, give a little bit examples of some card flow tricks in different decks, and then how to manage the problem in the deck building phase. But before, as always, I would like to introduce my co-host, Adam Esbjörnsson. Say hello!
Hello.
And Isak Esbjörnsson Bjärmark. Take a bow.
I bow.
Why is he allowed to be a gentleman and not I?
Well, maybe if you stop being a bitch about it, you can be.
Okay, I'm sorry.
And you, Anders,
You're so
say
rude.
hello now, or I will have your head.
That's how I start every show, by saying hello. But
Okay,
okay,
say it again.
hello.
I just made you my bitch.
Can we talk about Vitas?
Yeah, it's been a while since I did a program, but let's try to keep it.
Anders, your mic is a bit...
Oh, yeah, sorry. Is it better now?
You have to do that thing.
We can go ahead with how has your Vitas week been, Isaac?
Yes.
Mine. It's been great. Or maybe it's 2 weeks now. A fortnight. My Vitas fortnight. We had a tournament this weekend. I played 3 games, which I should have won, all 3 of them, because of the decks I met and how they ended up. But in every single game, I ended up doing the complete opposite of what I should do. Didn't follow through with my plans, made the wrong plans, just played like an asshole. But I made up for it last night during our pub game.
And
So
for me, it's the exact opposite. I don't want to talk about last night because of how it went for me. But I played in the same tournament and it was really good for me. If I played fast my first round, I would have gotten that game win probably. Well, I would have. But even if I didn't, even when I didn't win that table, I won the other 2 tables. So I was first seeded into the finals, but the finals was really, really hard for me, both seeding-wise and like with the opponents and everything. So.
What did you play?
I played Imbued.
Okay, cool.
Your mic still isn't.
Okay, so I don't really know what to do about it.
You can't disconnect it and connect it again.
Yep.
Here we had a static of his computer.
just want to plug ourselves. We actually filmed that finals this Saturday, so it's uploaded. It's 1.5 hour finals. All the table talk is in Swedish, but we usually do basically every announce in English, and we usually use inferior and superior, I think, when we announce levels and such. So non-Swedish speakers should probably be able to follow what's happening in game.
Okay, is it better now?
Yes.
Yes,
It's fixed.
crisp.
How has your Vitas week been, Anders?
Yes, I haven't played any Vitas, but I have thought about it a lot when I was in Germany, because I didn't have much to do, because my friend was working. And that was all.
Didn't try to get a hold of some...
No, I didn't have any decks, and I didn't have the energy. But
But
in hindsight, I would have.
you were in Berlin, yeah?
Yeah, I were in Berlin.
I don't think there's any Vitas players really in the eastern Germany, or the eastern parts of Germany.
The only thing the Berlin people do is party all the time, or...
Yeah,
I don't-
so I think it's an overrated party town, but that's a whole other discussion.
Okay.
Okay, so card flow then. So, Adam, how do you like to handle the problem with card flow? What's your main go-to resource?
By now, I almost always include dreams, and in some specific decks, I include additional cards for card cycling.
Okay.
Which could include, say, aura reading, or distraction, or even scrounging sometimes.
So which decks are the ones that you don't include dreams in?
Okay, so by now I think all of them have dreams. Now it could be some really monomanic demutation, we need stealth speed, I wouldn't include dreams. But yeah, I think that's the only deck I have that I don't have dreams in.
I have to agree with Adam. And even so usually you actually gain something by playing dreams, matter how monomanic your deck is, more or less, I'd say. But one very important aspect is that dreams is so common, so it's actually worthwhile to include just to deny others their card flow. And especially since the meta, or at least the meta we play in, the Swedish one, I think it's true internationally as well, that you see a lot of more big caps, and people have started to play Crypt Exploration with the big caps. So holding up dreams for a big cap deck actually means they have a harder time getting their Silas Valley out of their hands. So it's very beneficial to play it for effect and to deny others the effect.
Yeah, so when is this most beneficial to contest dreams? I mean, in the beginning, obviously, because people can use it to draw more Crypt Acceleration or so. But is it worth it even mid-game and late-game also, Adam?
It's probably the strongest in the duel, since then it's your only opponent you're contesting with. So with four other players, you will be denying someone else 6 extra card cycling, because that's what you can use the dreams for. But you're only denying 1/4 of your opponent these 6 cards. In the duel, you're denying your entire opposition these 6 cards. So I think it's better the later the game goes on, since you're contesting with the higher percentage of the players on the table.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is not always true, but many cases, at least for me, it's true that towards the end of the game, you maybe just ousted the third player, so you just started the duel, and therefore you had to empty your hand of aggressive pool damaging actions, and you end up with a hand with maybe stealth and masters. So in my experience, the late game you tend to have empty your hand of aggressive actions. In the mid game you tend to save up. From the first start of the game to mid game you tend to save up for an aggressive ousting hand, and then you empty that hand, and after you've done that you end up with a bad or bad-ish hand again and want to use some card draw mechanic to get a better hand.
And that's because it's normally when you do something, like when you strategically act, say when you're ousting or when you're defending in a pivotal round, most of the time you're going to be mainly focusing on using one part of your hand or one part of your deck. So when you're done with that part, your hand will be lopsided because you've used a lot of one certain kind of resource, and you will be stacked on the hand of all the other resources.
Yeah. To make that concrete, so if you block out of turn for one entire round and just barely survive, then you're probably out of reaction cards in your hand, and end up with something else that maybe you need for the next round, maybe you don't, but dreams can solve that for you.
Yeah. So you end up with this hand jamming problem. So which are the main decks you think, Isak, where card flow can be a problem?
Where you have more masters than you actually can play throughout the game. So if you play, say, 24 masters or something, but you have some card cycling stuff like dreams and distractions maybe and aura reading, and rely on those cards to reduce the amount of effective masters you need to use. Do you follow? So
yeah.
You play a high amount of Crypt Exploration to get them early on, but then later on you need to discard them to act, because you don't actually have that many master phase actions throughout the game. That's the one thing, and the other thing is a toolbox.
Okay. What kind of problems?
With a toolbox?
Yeah.
They're similar. So in a toolbox you essentially want to do, usually it's these 3 things: block, fight, i.e. combat, and bleed. And combine them. Not maybe 1/3 of each, but basically that's the idea. You have one part of each. So you need cards that help your card flow to actually be able to let's see how to make this make sense. So you need those cards to balance your hand and deck towards the specific opponents in this specific game. So by having a higher draw rate or higher card flow, you can fake having a high or extend your reaction package, for instance, to last longer. So if you draw more cards effectively, then you draw the amount of reaction cards you draw increases.
And it's also normally the case that Toolbox can't at the same time use all of their resources evenly. It's not like you're gonna have the opportunity of doing one block, one combat, one action, and then one block, one combat, one action. It's gonna be like you're gonna try to block 3 times maybe, and you succeed the last time, and then you'll get a combat, and then you might have gotten more reaction cards which you can't use since the next part of the game is when you're acting, and then you'll need those action cards. So things don't happen evenly. They come in chunks, especially if your opponents play well. They come in chunks because you don't want to facilitate someone else's card flow. If you're not being facilitated, it'll especially come in big chunks, and then it's really, really precarious to play Toolbox.
It's like the classic tactic of not blocking a stealth bleed deck, so it's hand jamming, so it won't be able to get the card flow he needs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Are there any other of those similar tactics to cripple someone's card flow that you know of? Anyone?
Well, some cards are only playable against certain capacities or certain like allies or not allies or stuff like that, and you can let's see how I should put this. If it's a combat deck that plays with
I have an example otherwise.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so you can deny card flow by playing Obedience and Mirror Walk and Stone Travel and Mental Maze. So you use them as combat defense, but you never actually enter combat. So you try to make either the rush deck or the block combat deck use their block or rush cards to actually get to the start of combat or just before combat phase, and then you use either Mirror Walk or Obedience to deny the combat, and therefore making them run out of reaction cards and only have red cards on their hand. And then they're screwed, because they can't block anything more, and they're stuck on combat cards.
I have another example that could be good. It's if you have a Bruce Bleed Predator. The best thing most of the time is if you know you have 3 blocks available or 2 blocks available, you want to use them last, because if you block him first and you get to cycle a lot of combat cards, he'll have bleed cards for the later bleeds, the cards that he'll be getting through. So it's better for you if he gets to play his play his bleed cards, well, not cycle his combat cards to get his bleed cards later.
Yeah, so like you can even choose not to block him at all, just trying to count on that he just has the combat cards in hand, has enough bleed.
Yeah. Of course, in a situation where you're going to die otherwise, where you need to block him to not die. Yeah.
Okay.
So can I continue on this Bruce Bleed thought? And
yes.
And with Bruce Bleed, deflection or other bounces are even more efficient, in my opinion, because when they bleed, you deflect them, they waste their bleed cards, and you force your prey to block. So either they end the combat, and the Bruce Bleeder doesn't use any combat cards, and it's essentially the same thing as you not blocking, yeah? Or you make him waste his combat cards, because he needs more bleed cards, for instance, to be able to bleed with the next action. And then you have your predator doing damage to your prey, which is kind of neat.
It's the best thing ever.
Best thing ever.
So there's a... Anyway, we've concluded there's a... Always in any deck there can always be a problem with hand jams and card flow. So I thought we should talk a little bit about solutions.
Yes.
And one of those, one category of solutions with the card flow is what we've called cards that make you draw additional cards. Adam was talking about dreams, but there are also other examples. Isaac, do you know?
Some cards that allow you to draw cards. Distraction, or reading, and you could say scrounging,
Okay,
also the mind.
I can't hear you.
Hello?
Adam,
Do you hear me?
do you hear him?
Yeah. I hear you. You don't hear me?
Do you want to drop from the call and go back?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Excuse us for a moment. Hello?
Hello? Vad hände?
We're still on air.
Okay, what happened? Are we?
We're rejoining the call.
Yes.
Hello.
Hello?
Alright.
I hear you just fine now, so please continue. You were talking about cards that allow you to draw additional cards.
Yeah, I have a few
Yeah.
of them up here. Infernal Pursuit is one that allows you to do that as well.
And distraction, scrounging, out also the mind on potence.
And there's one card in particular I'd like to talk about, and because I can't even find it. The Barons. It's a quite common card to be seen and talked about, but which I actually don't like that much for card cycling. Seeing it, just by comparison, actually, how does it compare with, say, Dreams? And in this case, it's a matter of you cycling cards is actually really slow with the Barons. It's one card each turn. Dreams has double that rate, and a doubled speed is a lot, especially like Beat is such a resource-intense game. Double speed is incredibly powerful. And to make use of that, like make the Barons be more useful than a Dreams, you need to use it 7 times.
Yeah.
And 7 times means you need to play it 7 rounds before the game is over. You need to draw it quite early. And most of the time, if you only include 1 copy, you can't rely on that to actually help you. It will not be 7 cards if you put in 1 copy most of the time. It's gonna be like 3 or 4 cards, and then it's a lot less efficient. And if you include 4 Barons, if you use 1 Barons to discard other Barons, you're actually just wasting discards for that Barons. So if you play 1 Barons early, and you get to use these 7 discards from the Barons, make it more efficient than Dreams. If 3 of them are the Barons, you're actually just discarded 4 other cards. It's just the 4 cards extra that you've gained from using the Barons. So my opinion is the Barons is best when you only include 1 copy, and then you need to be a bit lucky to actually have it be efficient.
Yeah, I have a problem with Barons as well, just because of you discard cards without using them, or you don't. You don't get enough for what you give.
What you said there is kind of important, I think. that it's not only that you, with compared dreams to barons, that you have double the pace. It's also that those 2 additional cards actually is on your hand for that turn.
Yeah.
So you can, at the end of turn, when you have shuffled through a lot of how to put it, a lot of your bad cards, or bad for that situation. At the end of turn, you're stuck your hand without those, so you can use 1 discard face actions and go down and hand size with dreams. And you can remove 3 excess masters, for instance, or 3 excess stealth cards, or whatever is the problem at that particular moment. So in that aspect, dreams is all better as well.
Actually, barons is probably better opportunity cost-wise, because you can use it whenever you like. You're not limited to having like a hand size for 1 round. It's, say you're in a situation where you can't beneficially play Taste of Vita. You can tap it the moment you draw a Taste of Vita. So in that way, it's kind of useful, I think, since you can, it's anywhere during the game round.
Yeah. On the other hand, dreams let you wait with that decision. What is the most useless card until the turn is actually over? So you can, during that turn, decide. You don't have to decide which card is the worst. After you throw away that Taste of Vita, possibly you draw some replace that makes you regret that option, and you never end up with that dreams because you just raises your hand size.
Yeah, but that's a benefit of temporary hand size increase rather than a benefit of timing, because the barons has better timing when you get to discard a card, but plus hand size is always going to be better than discard a card.
So, but what kind of decks do you think need cards that make you draw additional cards? Is it, like you said, with dreams, you can have it in any any deck, but it's like, do you use aura reading in any Auspex deck if you block?
If I'm blocking excessively, yeah, I'd say so. Because for me, there's really no reason not to include cards let you draw cards in any deck, I think. All decks benefit from. The question is how many and what kind.
Yeah.
So also to have the opportunity to use them is a relevant question as well. If you're playing, say, an Malkavian 94 deck, which is primarily stealth-bleed, you might have superior Auspex, but you're still not going to get into combat, so aura reading might not be a good option anyway, because it's not that easily usable. And the same with Dreams. It's a really good card, and most decks have room for it, but some decks don't have room for it, and then you can't play it because you won't be able to use the Master Phase action to put it into play. So it's also a matter, like, if you have the opportunity, I think card cycling is always motivated, but not all decks have.
But what about cards that you have to take actions to draw cards? Because I think that's a really big cost. It's a high risk. You can get blocked, and I mean, if you have built your deck a little bit, if you're searching for bleed cards with a action card that allows you to draw cards, so you should probably have added another 2 bleed cards and then taken out that action. What do you think about that, Isak?
There's a bit of a oversimplification, I think, but the basic statement, I think, is true, that if you have distraction in your deck, or if you have Hourglass of the Mind in your deck, and all you do with it is draw additional bleed cards, then maybe it's not such a good idea. But you have to be more specific. What deck is this? So say if it's a high cap deck that packs some fortitude, and you have Crypt Acceleration, then, in my opinion, it's a really good option. Because I play a lot with Distraction. I really like that card. I think it's a great card. So right now I'm playing it with a AAA. So I have a Crypt Acceleration that I want to get rid of. I have different cards. I have Parachute Banishments, Mind Rapes, Ordinary Bleeds. So I have a lot of different actions. probably more actions than I efficiently take during one game. But Destruction let me have more actions than the deck can play, in the same way I talked about Masters before. So I can choose which path to go. Will I go more Parrot Shift heavy? Will I go more Banishment Mind Rape heavy? Will I need my Entrancement? Things like that.
Do you use Freak Drive in that deck?
In that particular deck I use Alexander Special and Cavalier for additional. But I think it's very true that you need to have the additional actions through, say, Freak Drive or Cavalier or Force
Yeah, you need to have
it goes back to like, do you have the opportunity to play it? Is the cost too high? And I think actions are worth more the less you have of them, like almost linearly.
Yeah.
So if you have a lot of Freak Drives, Distraction is a good option. If you have a lot of weenies, Distraction is a good option. It's like that.
But the thing I talked about, with after you made a lunge and empty your hand of all your aggressive cards, right after such a round, starting the next round with a distraction can set you right back into the game again.
Yeah.
Things like that. Or if you play a toolbox and you start your turn with really crap, basically just bad cards, then distraction could be a good option.
I think it's very, very salient, the thing about the Crypt Acceleration, because if you can change cards that are basically non-effectual, that doesn't have any impact on the game anymore, that you will not be able to play. Say Azilus Valley when you're at 10 pool, you're not going to bring out another 8 cap when at 10 pool.
Yeah.
If you can change dead cards to anything, an action is a really, really good way, especially Distraction, which is 5 cards. Say you can change one of these cards are worth 1 pool damage or 1 pool gain. You're trading 1 action for 5 pool or 5 pool damage. It's put it like that, it's quite efficient.
It's quite recently that we started playing with Distraction, though.
Yeah, it's as far as for us, anyways. As far as trying to abuse and use, it's kind of new in the Swedish meta, I think.
Yeah.
Or a Glass of the Mind, which can be used on Potence, which is the more common use, but Temporis is great as well, obviously. I've seen with great success in Nosferatu Royalties builds by a Gothenburg player. So traditionally you have some issues with Nosferatu Royalty, having the right cards on hand, too much stealth, too little stealth, too much Silas Valley, too few Silas Valley, and you can fix that by playing with that card, or Glass of the Mind.
Another card that's great with card cycling, maybe one of the best, is of course Heart of Nichetus. Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Why don't you speak a little bit about the Broken Heart?
Well, if we talked about Dreams, how it's kind of good to draw 2 cards each turn for 3 turns. Of course it's even better to draw 3 cards each turn forever.
And the most probably another thing that's probably very important with this card is you actually don't throw the cards away. You do
both a blessing and a
them.
curse, because Crypt Acceleration you want to throw away. So in Crypt Acceleration decks I don't like Heart as much, but say in a toolbox deck, or toolbox or toolbox-ish deck, I think it's really, really, really useful. And it comes at the best moment as well. The untap phase is when you want to change your hand a lot, I think.
Yeah.
The untap phase and the discard phase, but since I like bleeding, untap is a bit better for me.
Yeah, exactly. And this card, it's hard to rely on the same thing as you said about the Barons. The same logic is with Heart, though not as bad because it's 3 cards, so if one of them is an additional Heart of Nichetus, maybe it's not a bigger problem. But I think this card really shines if you play Tremere or Tremere Anti-Tribute. You have Magic of the Smith, and you have a few extra equipment cards. The broken ones, say Bowel Convergence, Ivory Bow, maybe a Sniper Rifle, something like that. And you have 3 or 4 Magic of the Smith. then effectively you have, say, 4, 5, 6 hearts in your deck, and then it starts to be ridiculously strong.
Yeah.
And this one pays off as well. The first, if you use it once, it's worth it, I'd say, most of the time. Because actually delaying, comparing this to distraction, Hard Initiative to distraction is, even if it's an action and you draw 3 cards from it, the fact is that you're delaying those 3 cards and you'll use them the next round, at which point you will be untapped. So, in a way, it has the same cost as distraction, since you won't be able to use that guy who got the distraction the round you play the distraction. It's kind of the same thing as Hard Initiative working in the untap phase. Since using one entire action means you probably won't be able to launch that round anyway. The card cycling from both the distraction in that case and the heart in that case will be almost as beneficial the next round.
Okay, but when is it? So it's almost always worth of having a heart in your deck, or not, Adam? What you're getting at?
Yeah, more or less. If it's not Crypt Exploration. If you need to discard cards, if it's like putting cards in the ash heap, that's the point, and that's for Crypt Exploration most of the time. I don't think heart is that good, but if you're having a reasonable amount of actions, say you're playing mid caps or with freak drives, I think it's worth it.
Yeah, it really is. I say if you play high caps with no good way of getting additional action, I think Cavalier doesn't count here, but something freak drive-ish. Then I think Heart is a viable option. But if you just play a basic AAA or something similar, I'd advise against using Heart Initiatives, because that setup action could be the one action that you actually need to do something really horribly strong with that turn to survive. A banishment, a parrot shift, a mind rape, a bleed for 8, something like that you actually do need to do to survive. Yeah. You don't have the time, because that's another aspect. You can't like put the maybe 4th turn into nothing.
Yeah. Well, obviously you need to do the actions you need to do. Say playing a certain amount of Govern Superior, or rushing, or banishment, or mind rape. Those kind of actions are actions that you actually need to do. There's no ifs and buts or whys about it. But the actions aside from that, from the extra freak drives, or for the freak drives, or from the extra minions, when you start taking those actions, the first one will most beneficially be Hard Initiatives.
Yeah. Yeah, of course. But there are also a few minions that can help you with card flow. There's like Black Horse Tanner, and are there any other examples of such minions that you can use?
Look could be a
Look. Oh, I forgot about Look.
I was gonna bring up this guy. I think it's more common. The Nehemia. He has like Hard Initiatives in a kind of way. He's kind of good, but Look as well, he gets you hand size.
No, yeah. Yeah, he takes an action to give you +3 hand size. So you have Dream-esque built-in action.
Doesn't have an untap though.
Yeah, I think that's a big problem. It's a 5 cap. Yeah. I'm sorry, my searching is not going that well. There he is.
So there's some vampires that are viable options.
Yeah. Which one is that? There's a Ventru as well, Edward O'Neill.
But the one that makes you shuffle your whole hand in.
Nicomedes.
Right, he's the best one.
Yeah, he's the best one. That's like a guy you can just put in a deck. It doesn't kind of add up, but
as long as you play Freak Drive, I'd say, and some generic actions, say Vote or something like that, is very strong. If it's just a 5 cap that does that and nothing more, I'd say it's more or less a waste. But if you can use freak drive with him and some generic action, I think is incredibly strong.
He has Auspex as well, which is a common...
Yes, Auspex.
But inferior is very inferior.
Yeah, but he can still play the card. You're gonna include
he can
telepathic misdirection.
and you can bleed with Trokomancy.
Yeah, it's true.
which is funny.
Yeah, so his special is probably the strongest of all, because at least 7 cards you get to replace.
Yeah.
And since his special isn't an action or anything, it's just burn a blood, and that's it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like the Barons in the fact... well, not the Barons, but in a way, you use it whenever your hand is wrong. It's like, okay, I'm gonna bleed, play this card, oh, I didn't get a freak drive, I just shuffle my deck in and try to get a freak drive.
Yeah, but it only works on your turn, so you can't do that.
It's limited in a way, but yeah.
Yeah, but I follow you. So he's not broken when it comes to blocking. If you'd be allowed to shuffle your hand when you're out of reactions, out of turn, he'd be incredibly strong. But let's not talk hypotheticals.
No, I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, and there's of course the extra discard guy.
Yeah.
Yeah, so there's some viable options for minions that can help you as well. We will talk more about how to manage your card flow with using minion cards and action modifiers in the next segment of our show, and also give you some tips about how to build your decks so you will avoid card hand jamming. So we'll see you in part 2. Have a good break or something. I don't know.